of my good friends, his son's a
All right,
sophomore.
well, good evening. It is 7 o'clock and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we're going to go ahead and start. And before I talk a little bit about the forum for tonight and that we introduce the candidates, thought we'd start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we can all rise, we'll feel free to join along at home. Go ahead. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Mr. Carter, will you please do the Texas flag pledge? Texas flag. One state, under God, one and indivisible. That's it. Close enough. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. Well, welcome. And I want to thank all the candidates for being here tonight, and certainly those who are here live and those who are online. Thank you for being here. It's a great opportunity for you to hear from your candidates about their involvement in the community and their vision for the community. I think I'd like to start, as I frequently do, in really recognizing the candidates for taking the initiative to run for public office. It is not easy. It's a difficult spot, and sometimes it's a pretty vulnerable spot, and they care enough, and you've all got busy real lives to step up and do something for your community is to be really recommended and appreciated. So thank you for doing that. And for everybody who took the time to be here tonight, thank you. The last week and a half or so, we've had the ability to receive questions online because we were going to do this with a virtual and a live element. And we have received a number of questions that I think are going to work us right through this. No problem tonight. We do, for those who are here in person, have cards on the back table. If we get halfway through this, we're asking questions that have nothing to do with what you care about, feel free to submit that. What I have done is I've taken the liberty, with my wife's help, of condensing those questions if they're about the same thing to try to ask at one time. My name is Sheldon Gilbert. I actually live across the street in Lantana, but it's an honor to be able to do this. I think this is our fourth one that we've been able to facilitate for y'all. And this is my beautiful wife, Suzanne. She's the brains of the bunch. And so we enjoy doing this. We really, really appreciate Bartonville and really love the people here. And so we're really privileged to be able to do this. So the ground rules for tonight are that we're gonna give everybody an opportunity to have an opening statement of 2 minutes. And then there'll be a closing statement of 2 minutes. And then in between, I'm going to ask a series of questions. Everyone will get an opportunity to respond to each question. You'll have 2 minutes to respond, 1 minute to respond to each question. If you mention another candidate in your answer, he will have the opportunity to speak to that or rebut that with 30 seconds. Okay. If you do not mention another candidate, then the timer will stop and we'll move on to the next question. I am going to alternate and start at one end and go down and back, so everybody will get to go first on at least a couple things. And Suzanne will have the timer running, and she'll give you a 30-second warning. And then she'll hold up the red card when your time is up, and her iPhone will probably beep too, so you'll know it's time to wrap up. We have all candidates here, so there's no substitutes, which we do not allow, so that is good. And the audience participation tonight will be limited to just listening unless you throw a question in. If at the end we finish quickly and there's time, we may open it up for some open-air questions, but I don't suspect that's going to be the case. I think we've got quite a bit of material here. And hopefully, whatever you all are interested in will be addressed. So any questions or concerns with anything having to do with that? Okay, that being the case, candidates, we're going to go ahead and open up to you to do a 2-minute opening statement apiece. And we'll start with Mr. Roberts, who's a candidate for place 1. Please go ahead and make your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheldon and Suzanne, for being here to do this. I'd also like to thank everybody that took the time to come out, the people that are watching online. I think this town means a lot to all of us. So thanks to everyone for your interest. My name is Jim Roberts. My family and I moved to Bartonville in 2016. Before that, we were over in Copper Canyon since 2002. Had a place over there with 5 acres and thought we'd probably live there the rest of our lives. Then the developers came and got in power, and it changed really quick. The town started cutting the land up into small lots. The people that moved there wanted higher speed limits. They wanted to go faster, and they got that done. And day by day, the oak trees came down and the houses came up. And probably the most shocking thing that we saw there was the impact of noise and light pollution without the trees and with the woods gone. It was exponential. So pretty soon our country home was anything but country. And we wanted to move. It's not what we wanted to sign up for. And we started looking around. We knew people in Bartonville. And when we came here, we found everything that we wanted. And the biggest plus was we found people here that were committed to preserving what we have. And that's where we wanted to be. Our home now is our single largest investment. As all you know, real estate in North Texas is not inexpensive. It was a commitment to move here. But now, like most of you, our single largest investment is our home and our real estate. If we want to protect it, we'd be irresponsible not to protect it. So I joined planning and zoning in 2018, and I learned a lot and I met a lot of people. And I've been inspired by the vigilance and the hard work that people put forth to keep what we've got out here, to keep our rural lifestyle. I signed up and raised my hand because I want to go to work with you and for you to help keep Bartonville country. Sure. Mr. Arthur.
Sheldon, Suzanne, thank you. Thank you for everyone's here. My name is Dr. Justin Northeim, and I'm running for place 5. My daughter's here in the white shirt, next to Jim Carter. My son and wife are at the National Honor Society induction, so unfortunately couldn't make it. I'm a board certified emergency room physician with Baylor, and I'm also a part owner with Best EMS. So we serve 28 fire department municipalities and police department municipalities throughout the Metroplex, all the way from McKinney to Carrollton, DFW Airport, some very small towns like Westlake, Trophy Club, Everman, Kennedale, up until the biggest cities out there. And so I grew up in a very rural environment. We've been here about 11 years. We lived across the street in Lantana for about 3 years, and we wanted more property, and but still wanted to be accessible to the Metroplex, still wanted to have small businesses to take part in, and also wanted to protect our acreage and raise our kids. And so I grew up involved with 4-H and baling hay. My grandfather and great grandfather were both farmers. So I lived in a rural community for all my life and really wanted to stay and raise my kids in a rural environment. I think raising kids in a rural environment now is even more important than ever with social media and all the other distractions that they have. We really wanted a safe environment, rural environment, really wanted a great school district, which we have, and then while still being accessible to work and the pleasures of kids sports and other stuff that we're doing with accessibility around the Metroplex. So I think we're all here really to represent the citizens, keep our town growing in a smart way, in a way that we can control, but a way to still keep our very much rural environment intact and protect our taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Trailer.
Hi, my name is Jeff Trailer, and I've been in Bartonville since 1993. So I guess 28 years now. Been on property since 1991. Bartonville has changed quite a bit. Grown, we've doubled in our number of population, and overall, we've kept the town pretty straightforward. About 7.5 years ago, I came on to the town council. We, at that time, had a council before us that was driving the town in a way that was more commercial, more development, more hard corners. We were fortunate through the Keep Bartonville Country to be able to take over the council, move out the members on it that were pro-development, heavy pro-business, not just a few businesses, but heavy pro. And the town since then has done several things. We've done, excuse me, we've done the water tower, which was in a major battle at the time. It was something the town needed, and the previous council was fighting it. Yet we stood up for it, even went to court, stood into court and testified against the water tower for the town of Bartonville. We've opposed everything from developers who wanted to put in retirement villages, low acreage, cellular phone towers, everything to maintain the fact that we live in a rural environment and continue to live in that rural environment. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Trailer. Mr. Phillips, 2 minutes. Thank
How's that?
That's pretty good.
It's really good. All right. I agree. Thanks, Sheldon. Thanks, Suzanne, for being here tonight. So, hello, everyone. My name is Josh Phillips. I've been in Bartonville for 10 years. I live just up on West Jeter, 320 West Jeter. My wife's family, and I see my lovely mother-in-law in the back, has actually lived out here for over 30 years. So my experience with what this town has to offer crosses a couple decades at this point. I moved my family out here, a very similar story. I lived over in Lantana for a while, wanted to get away, wanted the country lifestyle, wanted to get them away from the mass development and get them into the Argyle School District. I have two boys, 14 and 16. So yes, just turned 16. So the new terror of a kid driving has entered my life, not just the pandemic, but a teenage driver in the family now. Bartonville's given me everything in my family that we could have dreamed of and more. Currently, we have 2 dogs and 4 mini donkeys, but along the way, we've also had chickens, a couple of cats, and some other critters, things you can't really get in a lot of places anymore. And so that's been fun having my children around that. All one has to do is look to our neighbors in Argyle and understand and appreciate what we have out here. If Argyle could have a do-over, they would do it in a second. All that started from some unfortunate decisions and decisions I really don't want to see made here. I'm running for re-election for Place 5 to help protect Bartonville and its citizens from any unwanted encroachment into our town. The citizens of our town have spoken several times in the past about their feelings about how they would like our town run and managed. I hear all the time we need more development to help cover our expenses. I believe if we're smart with how we spend our money, the town's going to be just fine. I'm running to make sure that we keep Bartonville country. And I do believe that the future for Bartonville is very bright. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. All right, we'll start with a simple question, kind of give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself with the community. So why don't we start with what expertise, public service and volunteer activities, and skills do you bring as a candidate that would make you a good or a wonderful Bartonville Town Council member? And we'll start with Mr. Northline this time. Got 1 minute.
Sure. So being involved with multiple municipalities, I attend probably 2 city council meetings a month for multiple different cities, very much involved with decisions on the police and fire side, public safety. We've improved our CPR rates throughout all of our agencies. So if we have a CPR in any of our best EMS towns and it's a witness arrest, just like we had recently with Officer Pendleton in Lantana, it's a 50-50 shot to make it out of the hospital. A lot of our competing cities and fire departments are about 20%. So we've done a great job with that. I've also served with on the Saddlebrook board, working with architectural committee. Also take part in, been part of 2 boards for emergency medicine groups and interact in the hospital level with CEOs and upper level admin and help to serve others who are unfortunate. So working the ER, we certainly, and with the fire departments, we certainly know how to serve others, and hopefully I can bring some of that expertise to the town as well.
Thank you. Mr. Trailer.
Well, I've got 7.5 years as being on the town council. I've been elected 3 different times. I believe that's the correct number. And have supported every agenda item that we have in the town. Basically, keeping Bartonville the way that it is the driving force. But to also keep in mind that we really want to manage what we have, because places like Argyle have mismanaged what they've got. And we do not need to go down that avenue. So my focus, been on council for 7 years. You've seen the way that I vote. You can count my votes. And you've also seen what is happening around us. So I hope that you can trust that what we have can go forward with me.
Phillips, 1 minute.
Yep. So like Councilman Trailer, I've been on council not as long as him, but I've been on council for going on 4 years now. In my professional life, I'm responsible for roughly 500 employees, so I have to be a good listener to keep that many people happy. I also have responsibility for my business unit's budget. So using the skills I have in my professional life, I try to bring those into council to help us prepare, think through contingencies, help talk through the right financial situations, and listen to the citizens because they are why I'm here.
Mr. Roberts.
I think as far as public service, I've been a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission now since 2018. Private charitable things, I'm a third degree Knight of Columbus. I'm a member of the Elks Lodge. We're heavily involved in a lot of charities, in both places. The biggest experience that I bring is I've got over 30 years experience in commercial business. Last 15 as a senior leader in banking and finance. Every day I spend time working with diverse people for common goals and collaborating to get that type of stuff done. I'm a 5th generation Texan. I grew up in a small town in East Texas, about 2,500 people. I get rural Texas, and I'm crystal clear on what keeping something country looks like.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Okay, let's get to the next question, and it's kind of the crux of the matter that is frequently and almost in all of these we've done, the main issue with Bartonville that people are concerned about, and that is, what are your specific plans to ensure Bartonville maintains the rural landscape and preventing Bartonville from becoming commercialized or with subdivisions with neighboring towns, whether that be your master plan or your commercial development limitations or your individual lot sizes, sewer access, a lot of things go into that. So what are your specific plans to maintain that rural landscape? And Mr. Trailer, I think it's your turn to start first.
Well, the driving force of our council is the comprehensive plan use. And it lays out it's a governing document that strides for us to be able to reflect upon it to come up with how the town's vision will be for the future. With that, we as a council have structured ourselves in such a way that so far no one's been able to penetrate the Bartonville bubble, if you want to think of it that way. We haven't allowed sewer, even though sewer sits right across 407. We don't allow it. And there's one key reason why we don't allow it is because if someone ever does have the opportunity to develop density in our town by accident, they will have to pay the fortunes to drag the utility all the way to it. It's another burden, another hurdle that we keep in place to protect the town of Bartonville.
The land use plan is kind of our Bible, so to speak, here in Bartonville. We've gone through an enormous amount of work to protect it and to keep folks away from trying to change that. We've heard over the years, well, let's do just a little bit. Well, that's how it always starts. It always starts with just a little bit, and it always seems to balloon into more and more and more. So we have kind of written a line in the sand and said, our land use plan is what we will defend. And we do not want to make any alterations to that. That includes bringing sewer across, because once you do that, that opens up a whole nother can of worms. And in my opinion, why introduce any unnecessary risk to our town by changing a document that's been just fine the way it is for a long time?
I too believe that the comprehensive land use plan has to be adhered to. It is the backbone of what keeps this area country. We can talk about that more in detail, but really it's just that simple. I think we've got to maintain it. We've got to defend it. As far as municipal sewer, I would oppose moving it any further than it is now. If you move it now, someone else is going to want it moved, and it's got to stop somewhere. And I think we're at the stopping place. I think that we've got a fair and good mix of residential lots and commercial lots in both size and density. And I wouldn't support any changes for that.
I also would not change the land use. I think that we have a good mix currently. I do think that supporting those areas that we do have marked off for small business would be important to help develop. I wouldn't want anything to interrupt our interior rural environment whatsoever. I do think that our small businesses that we currently have are very important to us. And I think that our property values are higher because we're here as opposed to further out in Crum and Sanger because of our accessibility to Highland Village, to Kroger, to a couple Starbucks, to a liquor store, to Marty B's, so on and so forth. So I would say that we protect the small businesses we have. We continue to grow along the current land use that we have set aside and our small businesses, and then we protect our interior land.
So the next question is about the Cross Timbers Water Tower, another a big issue over the years in Bartonville. And the question is, did you participate? Do you support that or oppose that tower? And did you participate as a plaintiff in any settlement agreements? And so, Mr. Phillips, I believe you're first up on this one.
I was in favor. I joined council kind of 3/4 or halfway through the litigation with the town. I supported the water tower being up and the little impact I had because a lot of the decisions were already in motion. But, when you listen to the fire chief and other, folks, it was a necessary thing that we needed for fire suppression to keep our town safe and surrounding towns safe. And no, I was not a plaintiff in the water tower suit.
Mr. Roberts.
No, I wasn't a plaintiff in that either, and nor did I have any opposition to the water tower. I mean, I'm glad we had it. We went through the freeze that we went through last year. If we wouldn't have had it, we would have had some real problems. And for fire and safety, I support the water tower. I have no issues.
Mr. Northrup.
So I didn't oppose the fact that we had in water tower and needed a water tower. I did oppose the way that the water district went about it and the way that they approached the Saddlebrook Association and the land that was protected, saying that they were going to do it. And once they were going to do it, they're going to set a precedent to do it elsewhere in our development. I think anyone in this town would have probably done the same thing, being threatened to do that. So I didn't oppose the fact that we needed it, came into it rather late, but did oppose the way they went about it. Figured it could have been done a little bit more fair to the residents of Saddlebrook.
Yes, we're still having some sound issues, so just, yeah, just bring him on in. Yeah. There you go. Thank you. Mr. Trailer, you're the last one on this question.
So when I joined the council, the town had decided that it did want to approve the permit. It decided it didn't want to approve the permit. The lawsuit was filed by the Water Corporation against the town. And that's where we were in the process. Shortly after that, the town had won its ability to decide if the tower could go somewhere. At that point, that's when I was on council. And that's when we reversed the council and we supported the water tower at that point, because it was important to have the water supply that we needed to be able to perform sprinkler systems in homes, fire hydrants across the town, to be able to put fires out when they were needed during the summertime. So supported it, went to court. Again, like I stated before, testified on behalf of the water tower.
Thank you. Next question is about your police department. And the question is, do you support a larger Bartonville Police Department? And how will you fund the additional salaries, cars, retirements, training, and supervision if you do in fact support expansion? And I believe it's your turn, Mr. Roberts. Let's go first.
I think that the police department that we have does a great job. I'm a guy that travels for business, and I feel very safe leaving my wife and 2 teenage children out in the country, because I know that these policemen are patrolling these roads and we see them a lot. They're high visibility. I think they do a great job. I'm not in favor of adding more policemen at present. If there's a time in the future where we have a clear need and that we can prove that need up and we have the budget, I'm open to discussing it. But right now I think that they're doing a good job, and I would stand pat with what we have for the time being.
So I am in favor of increasing the police department. Our crime from 2019 to 2020 went up 1,800%. And for the last 6-month average, we've had about 150 hours per month without police coverage, mostly after midnight, between midnight and 8:30 in the morning. We also had an armed robbery with an assault rifle at 7-Eleven a couple months ago. So knowing that I do shift work at night, I would really like to have support for this, potentially form a committee where we could talk about this. I think there's money in the reserves after looking at the budget to add this. And looking at our surrounding towns, I mean, I know Argyle ISD by themselves have 3 officers. Double Oak now has 24-hour coverage with 3,000 population approximately. Argyle has 2 24-hour coverages with about 4,000 population. And I think if you looked at the overall cost of this, it would be about $14 a month per household to have full-time coverage. In addition, our newsletter, we boasted about our CPR save. If that gentleman in Lantana would have been walking at 12:30 at night and we wouldn't have had coverage, he probably would be deceased. So I think if we want to put that in our newsletter and we want to support both our police and our fire, and the fact that our police will beat our fire department to a cardiac arrest most likely, that we probably need to look to make sure we have 24-hour coverage.
Mr. Trailer.
So when I joined the council, there was big discussion over more, less. And so at some point, we, as a council, we pushed through the ability to do a survey. And some people thought that that was the stupidest thing ever. But what it told us is that the town didn't want more. And the town really didn't want less. They were very happy with what we had. So that's when we took the opportunity to embrace the police department, give them every tool that they needed to do their job, but we didn't increase it. So we didn't do it because that's what we thought we should do. We did it because we found out directly from the citizens of Bartonville, that's what they wanted. So.
Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, this was a hot topic 4 years ago when I first ran as well. And my stance hasn't changed since then is, if the data suggests and feedback from our chief says that we need another officer, then we need to have that discussion. Now, I don't want anyone to take my comment that I do not support adding one right now as I do not support our police department, because I do. And I'm on record supporting a lot of recent things we've done for safety in the environment. We've approved the chief to do the flock system in Bartonville for safety. We've approved pay raises to help him keep and attract talent and keep our officers at a competitive rate. We've also backfilled when we've needed. So we've given our chief every tool he's need to make sure that we stay safe.
Okay, I think that brings us to our next question, which is, and it's kind of a two-part question. What is your understanding of the extraterritorial jurisdiction, the ETJ release for First Ranch? And then more broadly, what can be done, if anything, as a member of the town council to mitigate against higher density development and their impacts on Bartonville? So, and I believe it's your turn, right?
Yeah, so that area is obviously a hot topic right now. I think it's a big worry for Argyle, worry for especially our kids who are in Argyle ISDs, potentially adding another 3,000 students to a school that's already growing at record rates. I think that area is something that we would like to avoid here in the town for sure. And I think my whole push has been to keep the interior of our town in a rural feel. Obviously, we don't want that to happen in Bartonville. We want to protect it, which I think most of the other gentlemen up here also suggest. I definitely think that no matter what happens in this town, we need to make sure that everything is over 2 acres, no matter what. And so that is something that Argyle is dealing with, and we're going to have to help to push away from our borders a bit. Thank you.
So right now I'm the lead person on the council for the First Ranch. So there's things that we're having discussions over. Primarily the fact that First Ranch is our ETJ, which means it's an area that we cannot incorporate into the town of Bartonville unless it wants to be. So it's a standalone. We're having discussions about releasing that land, to release that land to Flower Mound. But to do so, we'll have to come at, I consider, a great benefit to the town. We will have to get compensated for that in such a way that it benefits us. The idea that it has access to Bartonville is not there. There's no way that anything in our ETJ that we release to the First Ranch can gain access back into our town. So therefore, anything they do on that land will not impact us. Unfortunately, First Ranch will negatively impact the Argyle Independent School District no matter what. So agreeing with the doctor, that is something that is coming around and they need to figure out a way to work with it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Mr. Phillips.
Currently serving on council, it's a topic at every one of our town council meetings. Councilman Traylor does a good job of keeping us updated on the discussions. We have some back and forth in executive session around the best way to approach it, but every conversation is built around protecting Argyle from additional roads, anything that we can do to protect it. And to Councilman Traylor's point, if we give up any ETJ, there needs to be some compensation, and that's been our focus. So the citizens of Bartonville will get something out of this.
Very good. So the next question is about traffic and speed enforcement. And there's some specific arteries, Porter, Broome, Jeter, and Gibbons that were mentioned. But what is your perspective in general as it relates to more aggressive or enhanced traffic enforcement or speed control within the town? I think Mr. Roberts, who was first? Is it Mr. Oh, sorry, Mr. Trailer, I lost track.
If you would.
Sure, I will. So how do you think you should, or should you better enforce existing speed limits in some of the main arteries where there's speeding and or traffic control within the town?
Well, right now the town is set pretty much at 30 miles an hour throughout all the town. McMakin is 40-ish. The southern part of McMakin is also 40 down here. And there's some, in Saddlebrook, there's some adjustments that I think there's a 20 or 25 in that range for it. Right now, there's no appetite to make any changes whatsoever. The appetite is to continue to have the police officers enforce our speed limits, continue to look at ways to take traffic off of Saddlebrook, different variations and options, since that's kind of a cut-through area right now. People who cut through on Porter, adding different patrols there so that we're able to curtail the people who are speeding off of 1171 just to get to 407 so they can hit more traffic. But no, we currently have a plan in place. We're executing upon that plan. So I have full faith in the chief that he'll continue to keep our streets safe.
Phillips?
Yeah, each council meeting, chief gets up and presents, the monthly police activity to us, and traffic stops, citations, warnings is always part of that update. And, there'll be times where we'll ask questions, or I'll ask questions around where is the speeding occurring and things like that, just to get his sense of how it's going. I can't recall a meeting that we've had where he's specifically called out speeding is a big, huge problem in Bartonville. And like Councilman Trailer, we've had discussions around changing speed limits, and we feel where we are today is where we need to be. And with Chief and his staff out there patrolling our streets, they're doing their jobs. They're doing what they're supposed to do, and they'll pull you over if you're speeding. They won't hesitate, and that's good.
I would oppose any changes to the speed limits as the way they're posted today. I agree that the police are out there doing their job. We see them. We see them staying busy. And, it ties back a little bit to the last question with First Ranch, and with the development down off Frenchtown, and so much more development out here and the high density stuff that's coming in around us. We're going to get more people cutting through, more cars, more bicycles, more traffic through here. And I think we need to keep the speed limits in where they are today and to enforce them stringently, just for safety of our citizens.
So I'd be opposed to changing speed limits, but I do think it's very important. I think that the ETJ may not have a negative impact on our town, but it's certainly going to have a negative impact on our schools and on our traffic. And so I can imagine 7,000 homes worth of people trucking down Frenchtown through Saddlebrook, certainly down 1171, crossing over to come to Kroger. You can imagine what the intersection of 377 and 407 is going to look like. Frenchtown and 377, the entire area. Also, with all the new development at Frenchtown and 377, all that traffic is going to be coming down, cutting through Saddlebrook, people going to Liberty Christian, going to schools in the morning. In addition, if we're on average short 150 hours of police coverage a month, how are we going to enforce those? And I would say after 12:30 at night, it's our most important time to pick up on drunk drivers. I can't tell you how many times I follow home drunk drivers after an ER shift at 2 in the morning, and knowing that we don't have proper police coverage is kind of scary.
Thank you. So we've talked about growth and the growth plan within the town, but this question was answered or asked several different ways. So I figure we'll ask it very succinctly and get everybody on the record. Would you consider it a disadvantage to allow public sewer systems in Bartonville, or is there any circumstance where you would support the expansion of a sewer system into Bartonville in part or in whole? So we'll start with Mr. Phillips on this.
This is really easy for me. No, I would not support any extension of public sewer. I think it would put Bartonville at a disadvantage from keeping the lifestyle that we want.
Oh, I spoke about it earlier, but again, just for the avoidance of doubt, I would oppose any expansion from public sewer where it is today. If we make an exception there, it will lead to higher density building.
I would also oppose extension of sewer.
Since I have a minute, did everybody notice the goose in the Kroger parking lot? I mean, it's the cutest thing. They got it roped off. It's kind of nice, but no on sewers. We've
No,
had the
that's-
question come up so many times and so many different variations and so many different ways they can ask it. And the answer is no. And it's consistent with the council. No.
Clear. So, that was asked a lot of different ways, so we got everybody on record now. Next will be, I think, Mr. Roberts, you're going to go first on this one. What is your plan, or do you have a plan to ensure all of Bartonville addresses have access to high-speed internet providers?
Unfortunately, that's a short answer for me too. No, I don't have a plan for that. That's something that I would need to get smarter on. I need to learn what the options are, what the costs are, who the providers are, and what would need to happen to get it to all the places that we needed it in the town.
I'd also have to research and figure out more about it.
I would approach it slightly different. I don't think the town of Bartonville needs to get into the utility providing business. But if it came down to something as such as a community grant, some way to assist a provider to fill in some area, it's very possible. We have a community development corporation that could do such a thing. There's different ways to approach it, but I don't think Bartonville should be a utility provider.
Yeah, my response is a little bit similar as if it became apparent that we had a certain size population of residents that didn't have it, would definitely be worthwhile to sit down and talk to them about it and figure out what different resources might be out there that the town might assist with, but I don't believe the town should get in any utilities business either.
Fair enough. So the next question, and I believe Mr. Northeim, you're going to start on this one, is we talked about Saddlebrook being used as a thoroughfare, and we talked about security and crime rates. So the question is, do you support changing Saddlebrook to a gated community, separating it from the rest of Bartonville?
I think that's the least of my worries at this point. I think police is number one for me. Certainly that all started several years ago when we had a solicitor come to our house and my wife and daughter were home. Daughter was quite a bit younger at the time. I was at work, and we ended up calling the police, and the gentleman had a strangulation warrant out of South Carolina. So when those people come to your family's homes and knock on the door, I think that that's something that's worrisome. We've also had several mailboxes taken out. We've had culverts taken out. And I would say most of the people that hit those are non-Saddlebrook residents. And so I was in favor for safety reasons to consider that. That was not supported because street costs and so on and so forth, but that was purely a safety issue. And I've also done research that about 25 people that live in this town have gated homes. And I think a couple on this council or on this table up here also have their home gated. I think all three. And so I would say that I think that was something that when we walk our dog, I certainly don't want somebody shooting by 50 miles an hour by us. And that happens on a regular basis. So that was purely for safety. But I think my number one is to get back to 100% police coverage.
I live on McMakin, so it's the raceway of Bartonville. So there is no, I don't even walk to McMakin to get to Broome. I cut through a neighbor's yard so I can walk down Broome, and not have my life endangered. Saddlebrook, there's no way that it can, become gated. It's the cost of the streets. They have to buy the streets from us to make them private streets. So it's not real for them. But we have made offers to do things such as try to figure out ways to maybe block off one of the roads to force traffic to go in a larger circle, slowing it down, making it less advantageous for people to want to go that way. Speed bumps, speed humps, more patrols. We tried a lot of options here to put forward. And some are more acceptable than others, but last time I checked, I don't know for sure. I don't know where we are with the homeowner association on if they wanted to select one or another. So, but gating the community, gating it, no, it's not something Bartonville needs to be, is it? Locked. Unless we did every street, which would be kind of crazy.
Phillips?
Yep. So my house has two gates. It came with it when I bought it, so I didn't put those in. But in all seriousness, yeah, I don't think the gate for Saddlebrook's an option. Those are public roads and that create a lot of issues there. But happy to sit down if there's other alternatives to think about controlling speed through Saddlebrook. But again, nothing's really come to me in email or, anything in council meetings about it, but happy to sit and listen and talk.
Roberts.
I'm very sensitive to the fact that people are out on foot and people are out living their lives and that people are driving by too fast. The safety concern, I absolutely get. I would not be in favor of gating it just because it's a public street, public access that we've got today. I too would be open for looking at anything that we could come up with to provide more safety. I have a gate on my property, but there's not a gate on my road. When I go out on my road, it's at my own peril. And I don't know what else we could do over there at this point, but I would look at doing anything that we could also to try to reroute traffic or help increase safety for the people that live there.
Fair enough. For the audience who's here, I don't think I've received any questions on cards. If you have them, can you pass them on up? We have one more question here that came online. Okay, well, if you wouldn't, could you synthesize it to a question and maybe pass up a card? We have one more question here before we get to that one. And we're doing good on time, so. Okay, so the last question that I had from the town council forum was, for community and beautification, what is your opinion on adding a walking trail in Bartonville or connecting to the walking trails in Lantana? And Mr. Trailer, I think it's your turn to go first.
My wife asked me this question a couple of days ago, strangely enough, and
Maybe it was her.
it was probably her. Yeah, who knows? But we live in a rural community. Most people live on or around land. That's the reason why we're here. We're here for the open space, the vistas, the views. To say that you want to spend tax dollars to create a park or create a walkway or a sidewalk to somewhere, you know, I can't say that I'm a big proponent of it. I mean, I can't see spending taxpayer dollars to do it. Now, through the power line that runs through the town, I mean, that's a place, but I still can't see the town, moving forward with that. From my point of view.
Yeah, this is similar to me around sidewalks, and that issue has come up, a couple of years ago. I think we heard about sidewalks, and the response and the discussion we had is, well, why would we want to ugly up our beautiful town with sidewalks when most everybody has some property, and you can walk on the roads and side of the roads and on your own property, and that's the way that it probably should be. And again, with tax dollars being spent to keep up, there's maintenance and things like that it just doesn't probably make sense right now.
I would be against it just in principle, but much less to have to spend the tax dollars on it. There's enough people that live around us and surrounding communities that use this as a park. And I'm not in favor of that. That gets more outside people here. There's more people on foot moving around in our town. I would be against it.
I'd be happy to form a committee to talk about it. I think if enough citizens want to talk about it, I think it's certainly a lot safer to walk on a trail than walk down McMakin, Porter, Jeter, or Saddlebrook Way at this point. So I wouldn't be against talking about it. I think that we should be the voice of the citizens. And if there's enough citizens that will want something like that, I have no problem forming a committee to talk about it.
All right, so we've gotten two questions submitted from the live audience. And so the first one is, will you support stop signs at multiple locations to slow traffic? I know we talked a little bit about speed and impedance elements, but we'll ask specifically if you would support stop signs at multiple locations. And I think, Mr. Phillips, you would be first on this.
Yeah, so stop signs has come up again in the past, and we really consult with our town engineer, and then there's rules that TxDOT and agencies like that will have to play, and they can help make determinations on when and where the appropriate places are for stop signs. It's not just a matter of, hey, let's go throw one out there. There's some work that has to go in behind the scenes. So if there are particular areas that we need to look at, I'd be happy to talk through that and get some of our folks that we pay to give us good advice and get the answers for us, and we'll figure it out.
Robert.
I certainly don't have any opposition to stop signs if we have a place where we need them. I think have to be a lot of data gathered, and there have to be a lot of learning. And if the analytics were done and it made sense, and we talked to the town engineer and traffic specialist that knew about this, and it made sense. If it helps make the town more safe, I'm open to talking about it and learning more about it.
I'm absolutely pro safety. I think that if there's a spot that we need one, that we should do our due diligence to act for the citizens to figure out if that's a good spot to have one. I have no problem having more stop signs if it makes sense for us. But our job is to listen to the citizens and try to represent them.
No, I would not be opposed to stop signs if they're in an area that's going to slow traffic down, prevent pedestrians from having encounters with, the cars. We do a lot of data statistics. We track a lot of traffic counts. We go back and we do deal with the highway department and associated agencies to determine where best to do things, where best to make changes. But there are specific cases and areas that, a little research, we probably could do something a little bit more for them.
Last question before closing comments. And we're going to start with Mr. Roberts on this one. What do you propose to do to help control litter within the town?
Well, I mean, you think about the litter that we have, problems that we have, there are fines for it. I know that we've got some cameras around town that monitor traffic. I don't know if we can utilize any of that to see where the litter is coming from. But I think that sponsoring some type of a town cleanup day would help. I think you could probably get a lot of people that would volunteer to go work and do that to make the town look better. We've got the cleanup day coming this week, and I think that you could do something as an extension to pick up trash, pick up litter, and clean up certain streets. But as far as how you prevent people from doing it, I don't know how you prevent people from doing it anywhere other than very strict fines and write people up when you find them, see them doing it.
Mr. North.
I would absolutely support that. I mean, I think keeping our town beautiful is why we're all here. Nobody wants to drive into a town with litter. So more enforcement, more cleanup projects, potentially working with the county and customers when they have public service type stuff from the county, from the detention, potentially getting some of those people to come and potentially help out. Service from the school district as well, I think would be great. But I think we need to beautify our town and do everything we can to make it a great place. And when we drive home from a busy day at work, taking care of our kids and our family, that we love where we live.
Mr. Trill.
The idea of having groups come in and do work to help to clean up the town is great. I think our biggest litterer in town is Kroger's. As the wind blows in what direction it does, it piles up on the side of the road. My bar ditch gets beer bottles and cans and stuff thrown in it all the time. I don't think there's a way to truly enforce it. I think the police officers today saw them throw a bottle or trash out. They would stop it. But most of it's trash that leaves someone's vehicle or they throw it without other people noticing it. So we as a town, unfortunately, as landowners, we all have to go out and pick up our own trash, pick up their trash out of our bar ditches in most cases. Now, if there's people who are leaving large sums of trash in ways like dumping, that needs to be brought to the attention of the town so that the police department can watch for that and correct that problem.
Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, enforcement is pretty difficult unless you happen to see them do it. But I do think that this is a great opportunity to have more community outreach and work with local Boy Scouts. As a former Boy Scout, I remember cleaning up sides of highways before. And, I think as we all care so much about our community, if we created an extension to the big Bartonville Day and we rotated through maybe major intersections in different areas of Bartonville, I think you'd get some volunteers. I think it's a great idea. I think it's something we should pursue.
Well, that's the end of our structured questions. So we're going to move on to your closing statements of 2 minutes. And I believe we're going to start with Mr. Northam. But before we do, I just want to thank you for answering all the questions succinctly and clearly. And you laid it out there and you answered all the questions. And I think that's great. Sometimes we get into these candidate forums and we're trying to, did they answer the question? Not tonight. You did a great job. So thank you, all of you, for being so succinct and clear with your answers. Good stuff. So with that, we're going to give you 2 minutes to make a closing statement to leave with the community. And I believe, Mr. Northam, it is your turn to start.
So once again, I'm from a rural town. I'm from a farming family. That's why I moved here. I want to protect what we have. I do want 100% police coverage. I don't want any gaps in our coverage. I know we've had discussions about the fact that many on the council feel like there isn't a gap in coverage. There actually is. There's people out for surgery. There's been people out for COVID. There's been people on an admin leave, vacation time. So there's at least over the last 6 months, an average of 150 hours a month where we do not have police coverage. And after 12:30 at night, that's not acceptable. That's simply not acceptable for this town. I want to protect our interior residential zoning. I want to make sure that we have only small businesses along 407, that we protect our small businesses we currently have so they don't leave, and also promote the current small business land and commercial land that we already have, that these gentlemen who were on the council earlier have protected for so many years. I do not want another year of 1,800% increase in our crime rate. It's unacceptable. I don't want another armed robbery at 7-Eleven because I may be stopping for gas there, or my wife or kids. And I certainly would be honored to have the opportunity to serve the town of Bartonville and the citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Northam. Mr. Trailer.
After 7 years of being on the council, I've seen a lot about what goes on with the town. And I've heard lots of things about the town and how people around us feel about us. In fact, we've got a reputation as being very uncooperative. Developers come in, ask questions, and the answer is always, no, we can't do that. A question has come up to me. I got a phone call and they asked me the comprehensive land use. And I said, absolutely. To let everybody on the TV, everybody hear, I have never voted nor requested that the town comprehensive plan use be changed. So with that said, if there's any other questions, if you have about that, please call me or email me. It's place1@townofbartonville.com. I've been here 7 years. If you've lived here for 7 years, is the town better off? Is it better than it was when you got here? Are you enjoying the way the town is? If it is, please vote for me. If you're not happy with what we're doing, please vote for Jim. I'm sure Jim's a nice guy. Thank you.
Mr. Trailer, Mr. Phillips.
All right. First of all, thanks to everyone who made the trip out to listen tonight. And then thanks to everybody online. I do want to leave you with just a couple of things about me. I feel privileged to be a Bartonville resident, and I feel privileged that you've trusted me over the last 4 years. I do want to keep Bartonville country. That's not just a fancy slogan. That is 3 words that mean a lot to a lot of people around here. And it's a pretty complex topic, but if you've lived in Bartonville for any amount of time, you probably know what I'm talking about. Those words represent our town's history. They represent a way of life. They represent the community that we are and the community that we want to stay. My voting record reflects my commitment to that agenda. You know, finally, I'll never forget 4 years ago, it was right after my very first Meet the Candidate meeting. I had a gentleman come up to me and told me he disagreed with my views, said that we need to change the land use plan. We need to bring the sewer across and we needed more development. I said, I respect your opinion. You know, everybody's entitled to one. He then said, and this is the part I'll never forget. He goes, I just want to let you know it's just business. It's not personal. And I was like, well, you know, when you talk about Bartonville, that is personal to me. Still respected the gentleman's opinion. Everyone's entitled to one, but Bartonville's personal, and I want to continue to work for you guys. So as we approach voting day, I would definitely appreciate your support and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. And Mr. Roberts, you get to land the plane.
All right. I never aspired to local politics, but I was also raised not to sit on the sideline when work needed to be done. The thing that really got me to raise my hand to take the next step from planning and zoning to town council and the place that I ran, if you listen to my opponent and I, we sound a lot alike on most things. And there was a joint meeting, February 18th, 2020, planning and zoning and town council, where my opponent advocated on I'm reading the minutes here. It's on properties with a minimum of 100 acres to have 2-acre interior lots and 5 acres on the perimeter. And that would be a change to our land use plan. It wasn't voted on. I'm not disputing any of that. It was talked about at a joint working session. And that concerns me. I can't speak to the motivations, but I disagreed with it. And I believe in maintaining our land use plan as it is and not starting to compromise. Can't think of a time in history where you give the bully the lunch money one time. If you compromise, you're going to be asked to compromise again and again and again. I think that's the backbone. It's the Constitution that we have at here, our land use plan. And I think all these gentlemen have good intents and want to stay with what we've got. But I know how I'll vote, and I know that I'll be unwavering in defending that. And I want to go to work for you and be accountable to you. And I would ask that when you vote, that you please consider me. I would greatly appreciate your vote whenever in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Well, thank you, candidates. Great job tonight. I feel that there's a lot of good information and a lot of clarity as to who they are, what they stand for, and what they're running for. I want to thank the folks who joined us online for being a part of this, as well as the live audience here. Thank you. Can we give a hand to the candidates and thank them for making themselves available? Answering the questions? With that, we're gonna shut down the Zoom meeting and let everybody go. If you desire to stay and talk to the candidates, let's do our best to adhere to CDC guidelines, and we'll go from there. So thank you for being here. Appreciate y'all very much.
I don't know.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Nice job.